Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, today's topic will be zakat on modern financial assets, a comparison of religious opinions by Brother Aslam Merchant. Without further delay, inshallah, would like to get started. Bismillah.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I have this one too. Okay, this topic is a little bit complex, but I get a lot of questions during Ramadan, before Ramadan, and so on. So I figured I can give a talk that will dispel some of the questions. There are people around the world who have requested this, so hopefully they're watching, and some of them said if it's recorded, they'll watch it later because they're watching in Saudi, it's too late, England, and wherever they are. So anyway, when it comes to zakat, and the scholars have to struggle with anything new that comes out based on usul al-fiqh, which I gave a lecture long back. They go to Quran, they go to Hadith, then they go to ijma, which is the consensus of the scholars, and then they go to qiyas, which is analogical reasoning. So they go back in to see how something similar was done. It's pretty much like a Supreme Court or any other court will decide. So any new issues that come up, scholars will give opinion, and that's why the difference of opinion a little bit. Just like in the fiqh, there is Hanafi and the Shafi'i and so on. Based on where they were and what were the conditions, they came up with different opinions. They're all correct as long as they are grounded in Quran and Sunnah. So what I'll do is I'll just give you a brief description on zakat just to get started, and then we'll spend most of the time, whatever time we have, on different opinions on how to handle zakat. It's a very important thing, and a lot of people get confused because there is options, especially if you have a substantial nest egg. If you have, let's say, $1 million, $2 million, and you want to give zakat on that, that becomes very complicated, and people want to know, do I have to give this much? Well, one thing is, ma naqasa malu min sadaqah, more you give, Allah will give you more barakah. Always have that niyyah, and there is no IRS going to audit. Your audit will be when you go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. With that, the importance of zakat, whenever salah was mentioned, zakat was mentioned in the Quran. وَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ وَارْكَعُوا مَعَ الرَّاكِعِينَ. Establish prayers and spend in charity. It always comes together. It says that we said it like it was mentioned almost 30 times. The topic of zakah comes in whenever it's mentioned. And zakah is really to purify. You take out from your wealth anything that might have gotten into it, which is not halal. So that's the purpose of zakah, is to clean and purify. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever is made wealthy by Allah and does not pay the zakat of his wealth, then on the day of resurrection, day of akhirah, his wealth will be made like a bald-headed poisonous male snake with 2 black spots over his eyes. The snake will encircle his neck and bite his cheeks and say, I'm your wealth, I'm your treasure. So may Allah allow us to give zakat so we don't have to face that situation. There's another hadith, Ibn Majah, they do not withhold the zakah of their wealth, but rain will be withheld from the sky. And were it not for the animals, no rain would fall. So it's a very strongly worded hadith that if people don't give zakah, then no rain will come to the ground. And it comes because there is animals that Allah wants to feed. So let's say that. Very simply, who pays zakat? Every single Muslim who is able to, who has the nisab. There is a difference of opinion. Should children give zakah or not? Some scholars say if they own the nisab, they should give zakah. Some say there is no zakah on the. Again, these are details that we're not going to get into. What is nisab, or how much do you own to give zakah? There are 2 standards because there were 2 currencies that were used in the time of Prophet ﷺ. There was gold. In today's standard, there'd be 85 grams, and recent price is like $5,400. And most of us own that much money in the bank or whatever. Another one is 595 grams of silver, which comes out to much lower, $430. In the old days, gold and silver were not that far apart. Silver was about 10 times the gold. So that's they came out the same. But again, the advice from the scholars is safer to use the silver standard as it was done during the time of Prophet ﷺ. So give more instead of give less. But you can follow gold because that's also a standard to measure your nisab. One concept you will hear all the time from the scholars is called haul. Haul is around or something like that. If the haul date is the date you calculate your zakat. And most of us do it beginning of Ramadan, first of Ramadan, or around end of Shaban, because everything that you do in Ramadan is rewarded 70 times. So if you're going to get rewarded, might as well get the most reward. Let me be clear, you don't have to give all your zakat away. If you got, let's say, $50,000 in zakat to give, it becomes difficult to distribute that much zakat right away. As long as you put it aside, set it in your accounting that you're going to give, you can give until the next year before the Ramadan hits. So you can distribute that, but set aside, do your calculation, so you will get rewarded for that, inshallah. Now, there are two different opinions. Three of the Imams, the Shafi and Hanbal and Malik, they say pay the amount as the money was kept above the threshold for the entire year. But that becomes very difficult. Say you have $1,000 one month, next month you have $1,200, then you have $900. Unless you keep track of all that and then wait a year from that date. So Shaban zakat should be given in Shaban and Ramadan will be in Ramadan and so on. It's very difficult. In the old days, people earned, they spent, some was left over, whatever was left over for a year, you could do that. Imam Abu Hanifa, who is more rational school is called, and many other scholars said pay whatever the amount you have at the moment, as long as it is above the threshold. It's more practical. So whenever you calculate your zakat, let's say first of Ramadan, look at all your assets, say, okay, this is the amount, and calculate that. It's much simpler. So up and down during the year doesn't matter, whatever you have at that date. And that's how I do it. That's how a lot of people do it in modern times. So that's something easy to understand. Who gets the zakat? There's a very famous ayah. That's what scholars go to. Zakat expenditure is only for the poor, the needy, those who work on zakat, for bringing hearts together, and I'll explain those in a minute, for freeing captives, slaves, for those in debt, and for the cause of Allah, and for the standard travel. It's an obligation imposed by Allah. Now let's look into a little bit more detail. The poor, starving people who don't have anything, and that they're totally dependent on zakah. One thing is important, you're either a giver of zakat or you're a collector of zakah. So if you have the nisab, you're going to give the zakah. Now, if you're in between, then you don't take it, don't give it, okay? So poor, starving people, are very poor, who are living from meal to meal. Those are the most worthy. Then there is needy, who are not starving, but cannot make their need. They can't pay their rent. They can't put gas in their car. Those people who are near poverty, so they get that. Also, if people, again, it works in a more Islamic government, but even today, there are a lot of charities who are working. So if somebody is working full-time on charity work, how is he going to survive? So they can use some of the zakah money. Now, sometimes I've seen as the charity has gone up and there's a lot more people doing charity, a lot more charities in US and around the world, sometimes the system is abused. So be careful who you give zakat to. What is their expense ratio? I talked to one of the people who were working. I said, you have all these people working in your organization. How much is zakat and how much are you spending? They said, we try to keep it to 80% actually for the needy. Some people go as far as 50, 60%. They're giving it to the workers. So half the money you give. So be careful. Check into that. There are websites. One is just a secular called Zakat Charity Navigator. Make sure they're like a 4-star charity. ISGH is a 4-star charity. A lot of other good charities are. Some of them are not ranked because they don't have the data. But you just, and if you know the person, if you know the people who are doing the work, then it's better. So you can trust them. You know what they're doing. So be careful. They're not abusing, like going in first-class flights to distribute the zakat and so on. So make sure you give it to the right people. It's okay for them to take some money, but not half the money for expenditure. Brings hearts together. People who are already considering becoming Muslim, as long as they just need a little push. So if you can give them zakah, they will be more inclined towards Islam. Freeing the slave, that is not applicable anymore, but that's also a requirement. Those in debt, if somebody is in debt and you can get them out of debt, that is also possible. Then those in the path of Allah. This is the fi sabilillah. That was supposed to be for jihad, people who are fighting in the cause of Allah, working. But scholars have expanded that, sometimes expanded too far. Anybody who's doing any kind of charity work, they say, yeah, we take zakah money. So again, you need to check the charity, what they're doing, and if you're satisfied with their work, you can give them your zakah money. But be very careful because it's very lightly used. I've run into so many. I work with like 50 different charities. I don't work for them. I just distribute, and people call me which one is right, which one is wrong. There are some websites who have evaluated correct zakah usage. I don't have a reference right now, but be very careful who you give it to and how. The traveler, somebody who is normally okay in his hometown, but temporarily stranded, he has no money to go back home, you can give them money. People who are dependent on you, which is your wife, your kids, your parents, you don't give zakat to them because that's your obligation. You have to give it to them before you even start giving zakat. And the family of the Prophet, anybody who's related to the Prophet ﷺ, does not get zakat. Again, these days, where are you going to find poor people yourself? Because the way society we live in, the scholars have come up with three different baskets in a way. It's not according to a fatwa or anything, just some of the scholars said, give 1/3 to your poor relatives. Somebody like your cousin or uncle who is very poor, maybe they're not here, they're back home, wherever they are. So about 1/3 should be given to again, I'm not referring to Quran, Hadith, this is just a guideline that you can use. So 1/3 to the relatives who are related to you by blood, but usually they're not your dependents. Other third, give it to the poor who you know they're the most needy. Again, you can't find, like I said, if you have a large amount to give and you can't go street to street and find those people, it's not like people are begging and you don't even know if they're actually poor. That's where you give it to organization. The other third, ISGH, ISNA, ICNA, whoever is doing that kind of work and whatever, you trust them and you know they're good. So today, one scholar heard him and it looks like a good thing because these days, most of the time, you want the tax write-off, you want a record of that. So give it to an organization that you trust. So 1/3 for your relatives, 1/3 for the poor that you personally know, may not be related to you, and 1/3 to charities who are doing the work. So that may be a good way to divide. And one question that comes up, can we get the tax write-off? And again, this is something new. The scholars have said that this is something the government is rewarding you for giving charity work. You are okay to get tax write-off when you give. So I always look for charities that are registered. First of all, they're more legit, and whatever you give them, you can get a tax write-off from there. Okay, so that's good categories. Now we come to what to pay zakat on, and then the last one is we're going to cover mostly today. Money, silver, gold, cash, whatever you have sitting around, that is very clear. Everybody knows that. Jewelry. Again, there is difference of opinion. Some imams say that if mostly men don't wear jewelry. These days they do, but if a woman wears this jewelry one day in a year, that's her personal property. But there are other scholars that be safer. If it's something beyond your normal, like, you wear some bangles and a ring or something, that's fine. But if you got thousands of dollars worth of jewelry and you want to wear it once a year, it still gives zakah on it. Again, Allahu alam. There are different opinions. No zakah on personal usage items. Your home, your cars, your laptops, clothes, phones, etc. There is no zakat on that. These are your normal usage things. People didn't have all these luxuries in the old days, but now they do. So these are things you use. This is a personal use item. There is no zakah on that. Other place is livestock, agriculture, crops. That's another topic. We're not going to cover that because I don't think anybody among us, unless somebody is surprising, they have a livestock or agriculture or crops. So that's a different issue for some other audience. So what we're going to be focusing on is business and investments. That's where a lot of questions come in. I get questions every single year. People argue with me. They want to loopholes, let's say. And there are loopholes available. Just like any other opinions, you just decide which one you're comfortable with. So we're going to go into that. Now, there are, at least from my research, there are 4 different methods that scholars have come up with. I call one the conservative method, simple calculation. One is called asset-based method. One is called Ushr, which is 1/10 method, and growth and income model. And I'll explain that to you in a minute. There are different methods. First one is conservative. That's what we're going to spend. And if you have a burning question, go ahead and ask me. Otherwise, we can answer the questions at the end. You treat it like cash. It's 2.5% of the current market value. So if you own Tesla stock worth $100,000, you're going to pay $2,500 account. Now, there are other methods, like I said, you can look at it, but some scholars say it's not like you are owning a Tesla factory that you have to sell. They go back and say, fixed assets are, you don't pay zakat on that, you pay zakat on whatever the cash company has. So, but you can go and sell that share anytime, and it's like cash. So don't get into those details. It's a safer method. It's a conservative method, $2,500. On $100,000, $1 million would be $25,000 and so on. But like I said, when people get to advanced age, they got retirement money and so on, the car gets into six figures, and that's when people start saying, do I have to live on this? There are other fatwas based on Quran and Sunnah and the traditions, and we can cover that. Now, people who have lots of money and invest it, usually it's in a retirement fund. Like setting brokerage account or something like that is, you pay zakah on the net cash value. So these funds are usually pre-tax because you were working all these years, so you were putting it aside. So now you have a nice nest egg, whatever amount that is. And if you withdraw, if you are under 59.5, according to today's laws, you will pay a penalty, which is usually 10%, and you will pay tax on it. So the net cash value is not, if you got $100,000, you're not going to pay zakat on $100,000 because if you were to actually withdraw whatever money you will get in your hand, that's what you pay zakat on. So you need to subtract those things. Let's take the above example, and suppose you have a large amount of money in your retirement fund. You're at my age, and you have. So you take the current market value. Suppose the person is the highest tax bracket, and usually if you take out all your retirement money to get cash, you're going to be in that 37% tax bracket. So you take out 37% from that. Then you take out 10% penalty if you're not 59.5 yet. So that leaves us $100,000 to $53,000. You pay 2.5% of that, which is $1,325, much lower than $2,500. Same thing if you have $1 million and you do the same math. Instead of $25,000, you will pay $13,000. So that's a softer, more easier example. And that I say there's no other opinion. Everybody agrees on that. Some scholars, I think it's a minor number now, that zakat is not owed on the retirement accounts until money is available penalty free. And that usually happens 55, 59.5. In that case, only the tax needs to be subtracted from the balance. In case of Roth accounts, zakat would apply to the entire balance since it's after tax money. So one thing is, the opinion of scholars say that Allah does not, you got money in a retirement fund and you are still working for the company. Allah doesn't want you to quit your job. That's the only way you're going to get the money. If your account is set up in a way where you can withdraw anytime with penalty and tax, then you can pay zakat on it. But like pension fund, it just accumulates. They will give you a number that you are at, so most scholars are the opinion you don't pay zakat on that, because when you retire and you get that money from your company, and a lot of companies don't even give you cash; they give you an annuity. You get a paycheck every month, just like you're working. So look into that before you. So if you don't have access to that money, then there is no zakat, because you may not live long enough to see that. So you only pay at that time. Roth accounts, like I said, it's already been taxed, so you don't take out the tax from that. If you got $100,000 in Roth, you pay zakat $100,000. Clear? Hopefully.
401k, will be in the previous category.
Yeah, 401k you take out the tax and penalty if you are under 60 years old.
No, if you're working. If you're working.
You're working, again, depends how it's set up. If company allows you to take it out, that's my understanding. It allows you to take it out with penalty and tax. So you subtract that and give zakat on that. There are some opinion which they say you don't pay it until you leave your job. So that's again up to you how you want to do that. Then for people who have large amounts of money, uh, there are other methods which can reduce your zakat. And again, these are all based on Quran and Sunnah, and scholars have deliberated on it. When you buy a stock, let's say Tesla, Tesla has a plant, right? So you are a part owner of the company. So you subtract, because if you were the sole owner of Tesla, for example, when it comes to zakat, you're not going to sell your factory and pay zakat on that. You pay on the rest, the goodwill, the inventory, and so on. So what they're saying is take out the plants and machinery and pay zakat on the liquid assets. If the market value is $100,000, suppose you own $100,000 worth of Tesla stock, fixed assets are 65%. Suppose their factory and whatever is worth 65, and the liquid is whatever goodwill market value is 35%. So you pay zakat on only 35%. $100,000 minus 65% is 35 times 2.5, 875. Again, much better than $2,500. It's a method. I mean, if you feel comfortable doing that, and there are valid opinions on that. Again, the asset-based method is very logical because, like I said, you are part owner, but it's very cumbersome unless you own only maybe 10 stocks. If you own 200 stocks, let's say, you're going to go into their balance sheets and calculate it. It becomes very difficult. If you own mutual funds or ETFs, they sometimes have 500 stocks in it. Are you going to go do, unless there are Sharia compliant, they will tell you how much zakat you own. So it becomes very difficult. So again, the scholars have said that set up an average number of the current asset value at around 1/3 of the total investment. So zakat would be on 0.5 to 1%. You look at what you own, what kind of companies you have. So you set up a number and you pay zakat on that. Again, this is if you don't want to go and calculate. Some of the money managers who are Sharia compliant, they provide that number. They will go to the math for you. I don't do that, but because there are so many opinions, people can decide what they want to pay. But this is the method that's available to you. Let's say you want to keep it 1%, pay zakat on 1%, because if you look at overall all the stocks that you have, it may probably be just 1% of that. So the other method is called Ushr method, and it's based on agricultural land. Okay. This is if you own land, you pay zakat on 10% of the produce. And this method was first, I think Amana uses that. Sheikh Yusuf Al-Qardawi, who recently passed away, he was of this opinion, pretty valid. He was a big scholar. So if you have $100,000, let's say again, and it's grown up to 110,000 after one lunar year. The growth was 10,000. So you pay zakat on 10% of the $10,000, which is $3,000. So another way to calculate it. That is, if you have 100,000 from beginning of year to end of the year, of course you're going to add new money to it. You're going to take some money out. So how do you calculate that? You come to your haul date, let's say 1st of Ramadan. You add any new deposits that you have added during the year. You took any money out, you add that. I mean, you take out the new deposit. You add the disbursement minus last year value is equal to growth. Excuse me. And cough hits you, it hits you. I have water. I'm looking for my cough drops. Anyway, okay, now I found it. Sorry about that. It's a little complicated, but you can do it if you want to use that method. And as far as I know, Amana funds do it on this method. It's not that much difference. We calculated about $875 on last one, this one about $1,000. So they all come out to about the same, except for the conservative method, which is full 2.5%. And the last one is growth and income method. This is a hybrid method. It depends on the intention of the investor. If you invested something for a long term, I'm going to buy, let's say, Microsoft stock, and I don't care to cash it until next 20 years later. So that is a long term investment, and you pay straight 25% on that. But if you are buying and selling, day trading, which according to some scholars are okay, so zakat is due on, you only pay on the income from that portion. You with me? The growth portfolio was suppose 80%. So you pay 2.5% on that, which would be $2,000. Okay, so that's one number. The other 20%, which was $20,000, you earned $1,000 on it. So you pay income 2.5% on that, $100. Zakat will be $2,100. Again, that's another method. So that's another way we can calculate it. Again, it's up to you. I still recommend, if you can, just do the conservative method. It's very simple and not have to worry about it. As a reminder, zakat on retirement accounts for any method should be calculated based on their cash value as outlined in the conservative. Same thing applies. Always look at the cash out value. What are you going to get in your hand if you were to put that money in the bank all of a sudden? So these are the four methods. And like I said, we get a lot of calls, and hopefully people who are watching will learn something from this. How do you deal with rental property in business? And that's a very complex issue because it's not as simple like you own stock. Some people have this way, that way. Any property that let's say you buy a piece of land, and you're going to build a house on it. As long as your niyyah is to eventually build a house, there is no zakat on it because you're going to eventually build a house. That's something you're going to need. But if your niyyah changes that you're going to sell it, it's a commercial property, then zakat becomes due on it. There is no zakat on actual real estate or business itself. Standard 2.5% is levied on net income from the rental after expenses. So if you own a house, whatever income you get, you pay taxes, utilities, whatever. So money that's left over at the end of the year, you pay 2.5% on the rental income that you have. For businesses also, 2.5% of zakat is paid on the retail value of the merchandise on holiday. So if you own, let's say, any kind of inventory and it's been a year that you're sitting on it, so cars or computers, whatever, those are trading goods. Normally in a business, your things are always moving, but you can always, on the day when you do calculate zakat, see how much inventory you have and you give zakat on that. This is really all went pretty fast. I have a website on which I wrote this article. If somebody wants to, whatever I told you is also in this zakat investment accounts. It's on my blog. You can read up on it and send me an email if you want to learn more about it or discuss it. Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, three comments basically. First thing is ISGH. It's a worthy, organization, worth your zakat. The expense ratio, the last time I checked, was between 5 and 8%.
5?
5 to 8%.
Okay.
Previously, it was 0 when we had total volunteers. So basically, if you donated $100, we distributed $100. Right now, we have to hire some employees, so deducting their salaries and all that, it's still less than 10%.
Good.
So more than 90% of the money we are giving to the poor people. We paid 900 families last year, and so it will keep
That's
going.
perfect.
The second comment was on the people eligible for zakah, and there was some mention on the debt. So I'm sure that if somebody has a mortgage on a very expensive house, he doesn't deserve the zakah.
Yeah, that's a debatable thing. You need to look in the individual situation. That guy is well-to-do, but he has $1 million property, and 90% of it is leverage. So again, you have to check with a scholar exactly how that will apply.
And the third thing was just, my also opinion is the conservative method is the best method.
Yeah. What I do is a little bit unique, and personally, I calculate 2.5%, but the 1%, I think I take 1.5%. That's more. I'm more serious about it. I won't give it. I won't give it to organization. I give it to organization that I really trust, and I know. Other 1%, I'm like if masjids and anything that's kind of gray area, but you can do. I use it for that. So at least still giving 2.5%, but I'm a little bit more lenient. Again, this is just personally. I don't feel comfortable giving 1.5% or 1%. I feel comfortable giving 2, because remember, in the end, if you give zakat, it'll be more barakah in your wealth. And you just have to believe. I had talked to one guy when I told him, so well, that's you. I don't have that kind of faith. I said, have that faith. Go for it. Give it and then watch. And after that, alhamdulillah, guy is doing very well. I haven't had the conversation. Just have that faith that you give more, Allah will give you more. Yes.
You said there is a zakat on the income on the investment property, right? Income, like the profit, like after you take out all the expenses and everything.
Yeah.
But if that profit use it up for daily expenses,
Then you know zakat on that.
you don't even keep it for one lunar year, it doesn't really apply, right? Is that correct?
Okay, if you're breaking even, like you collect, let's say $1,000 a month rent, it's $12,000, and your expenses are $12,000, or you're going in loss, there's no zakat on that.
And I wanted to just clarify and make sure they can understand that. Expenses, that for the investment property, or use it for household expenses, for the tuition, or for other expenses for car, all the daily expenses, if you use it up.
No, let's keep it separate. You're going on a tangent here. The income from the rental property, whatever you put it back into the to keep that house, make it legal, whatever, that's what you subtract. Anything else that's your personal expenses or whatever, keep that separate. That's from your salary, let's say. But also, if you're only depending on rental income, suppose you have 10 homes and you collect $100,000 and that's how you live. So whatever is left over, yeah, of course. In that case, you only not everybody is that way where they only survive on the rental property. But if you're an investor and you only have rental property, then whatever is left after expending everything that you need to spend, then if you got 5,000 left, that's what you give zakat. Actually, again, people look for ways out. So real estate is a better way to invest, because there is less zakat on that. Because remember the concept of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants the economy to move. It doesn't want things to be idle. If money is sitting somewhere in the bank, let's say, that's money idle. It's not helping you. It's not helping the society. If the rental property is providing houses for people and you're collecting a rent on it, so the money is moving through the economy, and that's why there is less rent, zakat on that. Okay.
If I have $100 in stock, how much zakat I pay?
$100. You sure you said $100?
Yeah, it's worth $100.
So, well, if you are above the nisab, which was about,
Didn't you say that you have to take out the asset? What is the value of Tesla's asset?
yeah, okay. If you go by that method, you need to look at their balance sheet and see how much of their total assets is fixed asset, like their property, their plants, whatever, and then whatever else is there, you pay zakat on that.
Around the 401k, you can apply the same method.
You can apply the same method, but you got to subtract the tax and all that.
Then around that, how do you calculate all those?
Well, that's the thing.
Impossible.
Yeah, the scholars have said that you can use I recommend people like take 1% or 1.5% and give zakat on that instead of full 2.5%. Around, they say 1/3, so it could be 0.5. It depends what kind of stock you own. If you are owning, like say ExxonMobil and Ford Motor Company and General Motors and all that, make sure they're all halal stocks, by the way. But if you're owning those, they have a lot more property. But if you own Microsoft, for example, or one of these emerging companies, AI companies, they usually have nothing but goodwill. They're software companies. So average is out about 1/3, I heard. So you determine not 1/3?
For Tesla, it's less than 10%.
Less than 10% what?
$500 billion,
So as the market value goes up, so you can go company by company and calculate it, or use a round figure, maybe I recommend 1.5%, but the scholars have said one third. So it could be one third of 2.5 is what, maybe 0.75 or something like that. So
Other question is the 401k, right? I don't believe that what we put in there, everything is halal because they put into the companies which are haram.
okay,
I don't have any control what I'm going to do.
that's
So I have.
no. That's a loaded question. That's a different question altogether. You can try to tell your company to allow you to either buy your choice of stocks and mutual funds, halal, or allow you to own like amana funds or something. Some companies will, if they have enough number of Muslims. I used to work for a company. We worked with on them for 10 years. There were some Arab brothers with us. Guys, I mean, there's more and more Muslims. Some people don't even invest. They're missing out on your matching. So they added one amana fund, and everybody put in money in there. But that's not always possible. It's a struggle. So I tell people to look at your offerings in 401k and buy the most halal fund that you have. That's all. Yeah, they do change. It has worked, and some companies allow you to even. Every company is different. Larger companies they will do that. Smaller companies they won't. So try to go for the most halal mutual fund that you have. That's what I tell my kids because they're in the same situation. But otherwise, I mean, that's I don't know what you can do about it. It's a different question. What part is halal and what part is not? So, but I would say since you don't have any control over that, give zakat based on the methods we discussed and just Allahu alam. There is a purification factor, which is also available of some of the companies. Like, scholars have allowed. Again, you're getting into the which I discussed 2 3 weeks ago. What makes a stock halal? So they said point of their income from interest is less than 5%, and some scholars have less than 9%. If the income of a company, suppose they're making cars, Tesla, if their interest income, everybody has some interest. There's no way you can avoid interest, right? If you go by that, then you cannot invest in any company because there's no 100% halal company. So again, big scholars deliberated and they said, if it's 5% or something like that, you can still invest in it. If it's financed at least two thirds or more by equity and one third or less by debt, you can invest in it because this is the economy we're living in. People say, "Oh, where did you get that?" Well, again, scholars deliberate, and then there are purification factors. You calculate what portion of your portfolio or your stock is requires purification, and you give that away without expecting reward from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. I last year I mean I own a lot of stocks, so I just gave like maybe 10% or something. I don't remember exactly. Just an amount that or maybe 1%. I thought maybe all this is of the growth that I had. Let me just give that as because it's only a small amount anyway. But some brokers will provide you, the people who do Sharia compliant, they provide a purification factor. It's more and more catching up. More and more Sharia compliant companies are providing factors that, okay, if you own this much, then you give away this much. This is besides zakat. This is called purification, the money that came from interest or something. So that's one way we clarified because there's no way we have 100% halal company. Okay. Yeah, somebody in the back had a. You got it. Okay. You had. So,
That's very expensive. You mentioned that the father his zakat does not go to the wife and yes, because that's
you said what?
the father his zakat does not apply to his wife and kids.
Yeah.
That's the implication.
Yeah, that's your responsibility anyway.
But the vice versa will apply, right?
Why?
The wife can give her
I am not sure. Again, check with some other scholars who is more knowledgeable. But I've read that wife can give to her husband if wife has a lot of money and husband doesn't. But again, don't take my word for it. No, it's not true.
No, it may be true, but what I'm saying
I mean, if wife is like Khadija and or Muhammad is starting out, maybe that may be the case. Okay. Any other? Yeah. Sorry.
We suppose like invested $5,000 in stock. When we buy the like example Apple or Tesla or Walmart, we just buy it on the dip and then we sell it at the high. So we make a profit of 2,000 or 5,000. So how much zakat we need to pay about 2,000, or we need to pay all five, or less?
Okay, so again, based on the method you use, if you go with the conservative method, first one I discussed, your total value is now $7,000. You pay zakat 2.5% on that, because because you're sitting on this $5,000, and then you gain 2,000, so you pay zakat on the entire amount. That's how it would be. Yeah, if you the fourth method I discussed, which is are you doing it for long term or short term?
You set that up on the charts and all, like whenever it goes down, then we buy in the dip, then it goes up, then we sell on the high.
Yeah, in that case, it's pretty straightforward. You pay 2.5% because you're owning short term.
I think to answer that, you look at your portfolio value at the end of the year, in Ramadan, first of Ramadan, let's say, and let's say it's $5 million, you pay on that.
Inshallah. Okay. That's it. Anybody else?
How can we get information here?
Okay. You whatever I discuss, I also have a blog entry. You can go to this website, my website, and it's written in like text format. I'll try to post this presentation also on this website, idaya.com, and you should be able to get that. Huh?
I have no idea about your website.
No, just take a picture of this or something. You can take a picture of this and you can, yeah, you can get that from there. Or send me a message. Some people, like I said, there are people who are watching. I don't know how many people are watching outside. So, like people in Saudi Arabia, there are people in England, I don't know, wherever they are, Canada. So if they sometimes, or there are people even in Mariam and stuff, Mariam Masjid, they send me a message. So I send them the presentation that I have, and then they can watch the speaking part. Unfortunately, I think they need to do some way where the presentation is on half the screen and the speaking is the other side. Because if somebody just watches this, they won't get the right sense unless you can see the slides. So anyway, that's okay. Hopefully, I answered some of your queries, and may Allah make it easier, make our earnings halal, and give barakah in that, and allow us to pay the zakat as needed. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي. You have anything to say?